Okay, who can tell me what we're staring at right here?
Brazil.
Lots of money. Good China.
Vacation.
The 7 wonders of the world. Guess what the 8th is?
Mr. Hurry's finest.
Time value of money.
Woo, woo, woo.
All right, the 8th wonder of the world. And it's kind of a lame finance little joke you'll hear from professors or whatever if you ever take a business course or take an investing course. Because time value of money, which is essentially just a exponential curve, that is truly the 8th wonder of the world. Time value of money. And honestly, my hope, you guys, and I have an assignment sheet for you at some point I'll hand to you, which we're going to be very flexible. I tell you what, while we're at it, who's taking Physics 1 in here? Actually, it won't affect you guys because that's the afternoon. Who's taking AP Chem? There we go. Who's taking AP Euro? Won't matter with you guys. Okay, so what we're going to do, like I won't be in here on Wednesday because I have to give an AP test. So on Wednesday, and I made a note of this in here, you guys will just bring in your exam review sheet. Does everybody have their exam review sheet? You'll just bring it in wherever you're going. Actually, you guys are reporting to room 206, our old room, this Wednesday and next Wednesday. This Wednesday, I won't be in there. Next Wednesday, I will. But either way, you go there. And if it's locked, just somebody go to the office and say, hey, whatever. But just go in there, let the lights on, make the temperature comfortable, enjoy yourselves. So we're not covering anything new on Wednesday. And then it appears as if we will not be covering anything new on Friday in here. But I'm going to be very flexible with this. As of right now, we have a 5-day exam review, which is completely not necessary. And that's not counting the Wednesday you're going to be reviewing this. I normally give 3 days. So I'm going to keep this very fluid. And if we need to, like if 80% of you are not going to be here on Wednesday, or I'm sorry, on Friday, well, we're not teaching anything new on Friday. So I'll just roll that back to Monday and we'll see. Who's an AP Euro in here? Okay, so that'll affect the afternoon class. So Wednesday is basically a wash. So what I'll probably end up doing is bumping everything back a day. And who's an AP Psych in here? But that won't affect this class. That's in the afternoon. AP Language and Comp. Okay, there we go. So we're going to probably lose Friday. There's a good chance next Wednesday, we're going to lose that Wednesday. So you guys, if you're taking AP Language and Comp, you won't be in room 206 next Wednesday the 12th. But we're just going to keep it fluid and probably just bump back. And every day we just bump it back. Just have your exam review packet so you have something to do, or have something else. I personally don't care. Your exam review packet is not worth points in here. And if you have like a 99 average and you only need a 63 for a B, I understand that you're probably not going to want to you might not want to kill it so much, although I'd be very careful. I've seen people lose their grades on this exam because they got a little careless, a little too cocky. But we're probably going to end up bumping that test back. Right now, I have it scheduled for Friday the 14th. It's probably going to look more like Tuesday. But we're going to have lots of little free days. I'm going to be very flexible. Anyway, that being said, my goal for the next 2 weeks for you is not to teach you how to become a financial guru. It's not going to happen. I got a finance degree before I went into education. It took 4 years, and I still was not a financial guru by any stretch of the imagination. My goal for you guys is to understand how important it is it's kind of like being a farmer. You want to get your seeds in the ground as soon as you possibly can with no threat due to an early frost, right? So you want to kind of figure out when's the last moment to get your seeds in the ground. You don't want them to sprout and have a frost come in and kill it, or you wasted thousands of dollars planting, right? And then you're going to have to redo it, and that cuts into your margin. But you want to get it in early. And the most difficult thing for young people is they get that first job when they're 22. And for the first, now granted, I see how people live at Auburn, and they're living in these fancy apartments with marble countertops and whatever. It's just nuts. I lived in a 6x8 closet for 2.5 years. I lived in a trailer for 1/4. I mean, I lived all over the place in the crappiest of places, and it builds character. And with the second I graduated, I was like, and I drove a car, I kid you not, when I sold that car, the guy gave me $300 for it, and I put the money in my wallet. Like, you know your car is awful when you don't even have a check to deposit, and you just put it in your wallet to spend. But the point is, when I got my first job, even though it was school teacher money, it's like tons of money compared to what you were used to. And the idea, and a lot of people are like, oh, I want to go get that car I always wanted. I want to upgrade my apartment. I want to buy some nice clothes. And some of those things might be necessary depending on what you're doing. But what it does is it keeps you from getting your money in early. And the people that end up being in a really great place at retirement, when you're 62 and 65 or whatever, 68, 70, the people that end up being in a really good place are the ones that get their money in early and often. Okay, and I'm going to spend the next 2 weeks talking about different ways you can do that or how to go about that. But the idea is you want to, on an exponential growth curve, and if you think about an exponential growth curve for you guys, say, call your investment window. Tell you what, before I even say this, I hope it is really clear to you. I've had people say, Mr. Hurry's just a money grower. I'm like, really? I'm a school teacher, okay? I was a pretty smart kid in my class. You know, I graduated near the top of the class in high school. I was voted most likely to succeed in junior high. You can measure those little successes however you want to measure them. Financially, if you're measuring it that way, it would be a struggle to say that was an accurate prediction in 9th grade when I received that little who's who thing. Point is this. I am not trying to say that it's all about the money. Please, I hope you can see that. My wife's an artist. I'm a school teacher. It's a chosen profession. I wasn't assigned this, right? So when I'm saying this, I'm saying I think a goal of everybody as they move through their life is they don't want to retire, get to the point where they either have to retire because of physical situations or mental situations. But the point is you want to get to the point when you can retire where your lifestyle is not going to change. Like if you've become accustomed to living a certain way, and then all of a sudden you retire and it's like, well, now we got to sell the house. We got to move into an apartment. We got to get rid of our nice car and get a lower end car, or maybe we can't buy a new car anymore. We can't afford certain things that we've I got to cut the cable, no more Netflix. That's not a goal, I don't think, of anybody. Most people want to get to the point where when they retire, their financial stream is still going, it's still strong, and they can live, and they're not a burden to their families. And hopefully, if you're really well, hopefully you'll be in a position where you can help your kids out. I know I had a grandmother-in-law that when my daughter Caroline was born, I went out to we had it wasn't old then, but we had a black 4Runner, little 94 4Runner, and we went out to put the third car seat in the car, and I opened the door and I got the car seat and I strapped it in there, and she was our third kid, and I went to shut the door and the door wouldn't shut. Like it wouldn't shut on the 3 car seats. And I'm like, crap, I can't fit my kids in the car. And it wouldn't fit in my little Acura. So I guess we got to upgrade cars. And I was looking for a car, at the time, I guess this is 2002, I was looking at like 99 Tahoe, something a little bigger. And my little grandmother-in-law kind of shuffled over there and she's like, what are you looking at? And I said, yeah, just looking for some cars for us, a little upgrade in terms of size or whatever. And about a week later, she calls me and she says, go to the dealership, pick out a Tahoe that you want, try to get them down as low as you can, and then give me a call. I was like, why? She goes, just do it, humor me. I said, all right, kind of knowing where this was going. And I walked in there, got them down about $7 or $8 grand off the top. They wouldn't budge anymore, gave her a call, she walks in there, pays cash for it, gives us the keys. That's a great position to be in as a grandparent, where you can actually help out your grandchild or their family, put them in a position where they don't have the burden of a car payment. Those are things that are realistic, things that could be real to you guys if you're just wise on the front end. It was hard to see for years, but as I'm probably in year 25, 30 of investing. And for a long time, like if you consider this your 40-year window of investing, right? Time zero when you graduate college, that's year 22, 23, 62, 63, 40 years later, right? If you consider this your window, the first 10 years of your growth curve, it doesn't feel like much is happening, right? You're putting this money in, you're checking your account, you're like, man, nothing's really happening to this thing. Even in year 20, you're starting to see a little bit, but you're pounding this money away monthly, making sacrifices to get it in, and you're not seeing a lot of growth. But now that I'm starting to near kind of this range, at 53 years old, I'm in probably year 30 of this, I'm starting to see that growth curve take off and really seeing it. And it's really encouraging that it's really done what it's supposed to do. And this is through one of the biggest recessions our country's ever gone through back in 2007, where I literally watched in 6 months half of my income evaporate. I mean, not income, half of the money that I put away, probably more like closer to 60%. In 6 months, I just watched it go to 40%. And it was sickening when you consider all you're putting in and you're like, oh my gosh. But I watched that go from, like, I had a particular index fund, which I'll talk about with you guys also, that dropped from 140 a share to, actually it was an index. So the actual fund went from 1,400 a share, and this is really creepy, down to 666 a share. That's where it bottomed out, which is really kind of, I don't know, whatever, telling. But it turned. And you know what it currently is at? Not 66, not 66, not 1,400, but 4,200. So it has gone from $666, basically a share, to $4,200 a share in the last 13 years. So your goal is, you are not going to live through a nice smooth curve. You're not. You're going to live through a very rocky curve. And especially early on when you're taking this money and you're investing it, hopefully, and you're putting it away, you're going to be watching it grow sometimes, watch it fall sometimes. Best thing you can do is just not even look at it unless you're an investing guy, unless you're a finance guy. Just put it away consistently every month. You can have it taken out, and I can talk to you about that. You can have it taken out of your check. You'll not miss it. Well, you might miss it initially, but hopefully you'll just put it away and you'll just keep doing it. And that little curve will just keep growing and keep growing and keep growing and keep growing. And when you're 62, 40 years in, or 72, which is way a massive growth, every year at that point, you are benefiting from getting your money in early. But I know so many people, I mean, truly, I know so many people that I talk to at age 40, and they're driving really nice cars, they're living in really nice houses, which granted, a house is a great part of your investment. Although if you plan on living in this home for the rest of your life, it might be beneficial to your kids, but it's not like you're necessarily going to be able to use that particular investment for your own food and nourishment and clothing. If you're going to live in it, it's not going to benefit you that way. But I have people that I would talk to, tell you what, let's just make this number more real. How about 22 years old to 62? I have people that age 42, they don't get their money in until 42 because they've been kind of living what I call the high life, just kind of enjoying the now, going on big fancy trips, buying really nice watches, these kinds of things. And then they started when they were 42. And the reality is now they're going to have to do the same thing I did, but till they're 82, which is really not realistic for most people. I mean, guys like Nick Saban who don't age and seem eternal might be able to work that late, but he's pushing 70. And you already see how it's affected him well, you haven't seen how it's affected him on the field or in the draft room, but you can see he's aging, he's getting a little older. I don't know that he wants to go till he's 82. But the point is, you can see if you start at 42 and you still plan on a retirement at 62, you're not going to have anywhere near what you would have if you got your money in early and often. And I'm going to show you some we're going to use the math of this. You're going to see a situation where I give you an example of a guy who invested for 10 years from 22 to 32 and then never put another dime in and just let that initial investment grow. And we're going to compare that to somebody who waited 10 years and then started putting money in for 30 years. So one guy did it for 10 and let it grow. The other person waited 10, but then did it for 30. And the person who did it for the initial 10 and then let it grow ends up doubling the other guy just because he got it in early. And we're talking substantial money. I mean, being a millionaire, guys, is not what it used to be. Most people who live in Edgewood or whatever, that live in that area, by the time they're my age, they're millionaires. Okay, you'd be shocked. Most people really are. Their houses alone, I don't know that they own them outright yet, but the properties of people at Homewood, a lot of millionaires. That's not necessarily a massive goal, because you start thinking about it on today's world that we live in. The interest rates that the federal government sets for loans and things like that are really, really low. So if you put money in a bank account, you're getting very little on it. And I mean very little, like 0.1%. So, and bonds, we'll talk about bonds later too. If you put your money into bonds, which are a very safe and secure investment, but not a great return on your investment, you might get 2%. So you start doing the math on that and you're like, if I have $1 million saved up and I invest it in bonds, I'm getting 2% back a year. Can you live off 20 grand? And keep in mind that you still have to pay capital gains tax on that 20 grand. There are things like that too. So how much money do you really have to live on? If you want to live off 100 grand a year, now you got to have $5 million in the bank to be able to live off 100 grand a year. And pensions like I have, like if I were to walk out of here tomorrow, I will get paid for the rest of my life, probably 55, 60% of my current salary forever, assuming Alabama stays Alabama and the retirement services and China doesn't invade and take over. And if it does, I have worse concerns, right, than my retirement probably. But the point is, those kind of pensions, unless you're a cop or a fireman or a teacher, they don't really happen anymore. It's about you and your 401k, which we'll talk about, or your 403b, or whatever it is that your company might offer you, or your individual investing. It's about you in putting this money in, getting into an investment, and just trusting the time value of money, which is basically, if you look at the stock market, and I'll talk about the stock market too. If you look at the stock market over the past 100 and something years, and you pick any 40-year window, so any one, 1920, 1960, 1960, 2000, 1980, 2020, you take any 40-year window, which is like what you're going to deal with, and you will see totally different curve growths, but you're always going to average between 10, 11, 13, 14%. So if you can get 10, 11% in your 40-year window, even though it might be a perilous ride for you, and you might have some serious dips like I did in year 14, where I saw it drop to 60% dip, but then it's been skyrocketing ever since. If you can get it in, especially early and often, you're going to see, and I'm going to see it when I finally retire. Now, maybe not at age, if I retired this year, but like when I'm finally hang up my work gloves or whatever, when I finally am done at 62, 64, whatever that age is, whatever that career might be at the time, our income stream based on the math will be better than it currently is. And that's where you want to be. You want to be where you're actually in a better place, because listen, your house will probably be paid off at that point when you're 62, right? More than likely your kids have graduated from high school unless you got going really, really late or married really, really young or something. I mean, like if you're like a 60-year-old dude and you marry a 20-year-old, maybe you're an old guy with kids, but most of the time that's not the case, right? By the time you're 60, I mean, I'm 53 and all of my kids are out of high school. We've already got their college fund set up. The money's already put away. We'll probably have to think about a couple of weddings, which will take a hit, you know. But the point is, we'll be in a position, our house is paid off. So situations like that where you reduce your debt, you don't need to live off as much. You probably don't even need as much. But if you're in a position where your income stream is as good or better, that's where you want to be. And you don't have to be some money-grubbing fool to do it. You just have to be wise. Okay? Now, another thing I want to put a disclaimer out there. Every time I have this conversation, I'll have somebody come back to me and they'll say, yeah, my mom says you're really, or dad says you're really unrealistic, and that you don't know their situation, because a lot of times you'll go home and say, hey, are you investing, dad? Are you investing, mom? Listen, I understand that every situation is different. I know when I was 9.5, I had a sister born that had like a lot of medical issues. She's had multiple open heart surgeries, diaphragm surgeries, continues at age 40 something to have health issues. And back then, even though my dad was in the military and had pretty good insurance, he had massive financial bills that even the military didn't cover, because he had to get very specialized care for her. And I mean, really significant bills. This is back in the late 70s. And we're talking 25 grand, I think, 1 year. And you're talking 25 grand is a massive hit on somebody in the 1970s, when a military guy might have been making 40, you know? So really having to dig deep. Certain years like that, was he able to continue to get his money in? I don't know. You know, there are certainly life situations where single moms that are working 2 jobs just to pay ends meet, are they able to invest? I don't know. Sometimes life gives you a really tough blow, and you just have to do the best you can to survive it. But the faces I'm looking at least, and I don't know y'all's backstory, every one of your backstories, but the faces I'm looking at are people that are very bright, that are very capable, that have the opportunities, and that have probably the ability to go out there and make that change if you're willing to work and you're willing to do it. And if you're willing to do that, I mean, you are the cream of the crop in terms of ability, in terms of mind, in terms of opportunity. And if you get out there, you can do what you want to do. And I know this, I put away, gosh, somewhere in the neighborhood of 16 grand a year towards retirement. I probably put somewhere in the neighborhood of 6 in my school retirement that gets shoveled in there. And then also I maximize our Roth IRAs, which I'll talk about also, and for myself and for my wife. And we put that money away even with a school teacher and an artist's salary. Okay? Now, is that hard? I drive a 14-year-old car. You know, we usually have one really solid, reliable car, and then we have mine. And it might look okay, but it's an old car that breaks or whatever. Do we live in Homewood? No. And that's a couple of reasons. One, I like a big house. My house in Homewood, well, I don't even know if my house exists in Homewood. I mean, it's a much bigger house than I could ever even dream of affording in Homewood. That's okay. I drive in and out, and it's kind of nice to have a little barrier, a little privacy, you know, away from the masses. But there are choices I made, and those choices allow me to get this money in. I got this money in early and often. Okay, and now the money I invest now at age 53 in that 10-year growth window, it's really not going to see as much growth, right? Because the growth I get on my money I'm putting in now is going to be growing like this, at least between the time I put it in now and to the time I retire. Maybe not the time I put it in now to the time I'm, you know, not home. That's what we call it. Somebody finally passes away. They're not home anymore. You know, from 53 to 83, it's going to continue to grow if I'm not using it. But the point is, it's not as the urgency to pound it away like it used to be is not there. Okay. And hopefully, and we're going to do kind of studies in here on, all right, what can you do? How much money can you, like, let's find a number that you can put away every month and just start. I mean, the instant you get a job, the instant you shake hands or whatever, or accept that job, and you start filling out forms, you need, my daughter just took a job with a place, and you need to maximize a couple things. One, the benefits this company will give you. Do y'all know what a 401k is? Okay, you might have heard it, you might not have. A 401k is one way to invest. And it's not like a particular stock. A 401k is something a company has. It's basically a retirement fund a company has to encourage your savings. And sometimes the actual stocks are in that company. So by you putting the money in there, you're actually helping the company. But a lot of times what they do is they offer matching contributions. Like I don't know if any of your parents work for Braswell and Gorey but Braswell and Gorey, I remember because I have a couple of friends that work there. And they go, yeah, they match dollar for dollar. everything I put in there up to 10% of my income. It's like, what? They're like, yeah. So for instance, say you make 100 grand and you decide you want to invest 10,000 of your money over the course of a year. I don't know, what's that, 800 a month or whatever, over the course of a year. And you want to put that money in this retirement fund. Brassel and Gorey will go, oh, we will match that. So now you don't have 800 a month going in, you have 1,600 a month. Now that right there is the most brainless decision you can ever make, okay? Literally, if somebody offers you matching contributions, do it. Even if it, even if it means you might have to borrow a little money occasionally, because they're literally doubling your money. Even 50% matching. I told my daughter, they have matching contributions for the first, it's not 10% like B&G was, but I think it was like the first 5%, and then maybe it's 50% after that, up to a certain point. But I said, oh, honey, match it. Everything you can possibly do. Let them help your initial contributions. Pound that money in there. Get those seeds in the ground early and let them grow. And you're going to be shocked when you see how this growth operates. Because we're not talking about a dollar. I'll show you that in a couple seconds. We're not talking about a single dollar growing or even $1,000 growing. We're talking about whatever you put in this month growing, whatever you put in the next month growing, whatever you put in the next month growing. And this annuity, when you put something in monthly, this annuity growth that you're going to see is unbelievable. And it's going to hopefully make you rethink. Like I had a girl that rethink the way you spend your money. I had a girl named Emily years ago, wonderful kid, super bright. And every day she would walk in the first period with this massive, venti, Starbucks, maca chocolate cappuccino or something, whatever it was. She would just walk in and she'd be sipping on it. And this could be maybe 10, 12, 14 years ago, maybe. And I remember asking, I was like, no, gosh, it's at least 15 years ago. Anyway, I remember going, do you mind me asking, what does that Starbucks cost you? And this was way, way back. And she goes, I think it's like $5.75, $6. I was like, do you get one of those every day? She goes, yeah, well, every school day. And sometimes on the weekends. I'm like, okay, we're going to use you as an example. So we used her as an example of what would happen if she just quit drinking those coffees from Starbucks and maybe just got a cup of coffee at home. Okay, and maybe she could even buy a little cappuccino, make a small investment in a cappuccino maker and try to duplicate something at home. And we said, okay, even if it costs you $2 at home, if you took that extra $3 a day, 25 days a week, $75 a month, what would happen if you took that money and started investing it? And you'll be blown away when we start showing these formulas, what just a one-time investment of $75 will do, much less a monthly investment of $75. Smoking, which I hope you guys aren't smoking. If you are, please quit, because it is the worst drain on your money. You're talking $7 a pack. I had an aunt who smoked like 2.5, 3 packs a day. And by today's standards, that'd be like $21 a day. It's like $600 something a month or whatever. That's like a Mercedes payment. And she did that. And it eventually killed her with lung cancer, although ironically, she got lung cancer and she wouldn't clean up her smoking. And then she lived like 3.5 years with lung cancer, which is not normal. Normally, it's like you get lung cancer, you're gone in 6 months. And the doctor's like, we think your smoking is what's killing you is actually keeping you alive now. The smoke in your lungs is killing off the cancer. And she lived an extra 3 years. But the point is, but it totally cost her a fortune actually in money that she spent that she could have been putting in a better place. Now, do I go out and get a coffee or whatever, drink or whatever? Yes, I do those things, especially at 53, because again, my investment window, my time is closing. And the money that I put in is going to do most of the damage that I've had. But the money I put in early, that's what I'm going to really be depending on. The money I put in now, even though I put in way more now than I ever used to, I mean, it was a trial before to get $300 a month in the early years. So my goal for you is to do this. The government is going to offer you, and then I'm going to show you some interest formulas, and then we're going to get out of here. The government is going to allow you very, very few tax benefits. They don't, because the government wants to take your money and spend it massively, just incredibly poorly and inefficiently. But they're going to want to take your money, all right? And a couple times they give you these breaks. And one of the breaks is actually retirement. It's kind of an idea that, hey, if you want to put money in a retirement fund, we will either give you a tax break on the front end or a tax break on the back end. What that means is this. Like, let's just say you, and we'll talk about this also, but let's just say you are earning some money and the government's going to tax you, state, federal, whatever, all these taxes, FICA, all this. If you put your money in a retirement fund, you can put that in there tax-free, which means, for instance, if you weren't to pay taxes on, let's just say you were going to invest $5,000 over the course of that year. If you don't put it away, they're going to tax you like at 33%. When all's said and done, it's at least 33. If you're really making a lot of money, it could be upwards of 60% of your money. And you're going to be shocked to see how much actually gets taxed. It's really painful. So when you hear people say, raise taxes, what's the big deal? I mean, you're already paying a lot of money in taxes, depending on your perspective. And you'll see that. Point is, though, put it in there tax-free. And then when I finally do spend it in my 60s or 70s, more than likely, I'm spending less money deep into the future because I don't have my expenses that I currently have. And you only you only pay taxes on what you take out. So what that does, if you're spending a little less in the future, you're in a lower income tax bracket. So you take out less, you spend less on taxes. Now, the other option is, if you're like, well, I'd rather go ahead and pay my taxes now. And I've done this. I have a Roth IRA. I'm a school teacher. I don't make a ton of money. I pay my taxes now because I'm in a lower income tax bracket. In the future, based on my projections, we're going to have more money to spend then. So I pay my taxes now, and then I watch that money grow and I never pay taxes again. At the bare minimum, you have to take advantage of what the government offers you in terms of free taxes. They're literally giving the money back to you. And I'll show you the math. I got a really nice chart that's in there we'll go over, and I'll show you the math of this. But if you just do that, all of you in this room, if you just do the very bare minimum that the government allows you to put away tax-free, everybody in it, and you do it starting when you're 22, everybody in here at 62 will be a very solid millionaire at today's value money. I mean, really solid. And that's if all you do is put in the minimum. If you do it and your spouse does it, double it. If you, like me, as your income grows, you put more and more and more in there. Like initially I was putting $300 a month. Now we're probably putting somewhere like $1,500 a month. If you continue to increase that amount as you're able and continue to put more weight, granted, you still might have to make some sacrifices. I haven't been to Italy. I got friends that have taken their families to Italy and dropped 40 grand. You know, people that go, and there's nothing wrong with that if you can have a cake and eat it too. If you got a great job, you know, my advice to you is, you know, give to charities, pay your bills. If you can put 15, 20% away every month towards your retirement and you got a lot left over, man, enjoy the crud out of it. But if you can do that, you are well on your way to really being in a good place. And again, I'm not talking about being a money grubber. I'm just talking about being smart, and being smart, which is the hardest part, when you are the least wise in your entire life. Well, in the entire rest of your life. At age 22, you'll have been filled with information. You'll have hardly any life experience. And somebody like me is telling you, hey, now's the time to make the most critical decision in your life. And that's to put money away early and often now at sacrifice while all your friends are going out and clubbing and doing whatever it is they want to do, going on fancy trips with each other, going and doing this stuff and enjoying life. And you're going to say no. Even if you're getting married or whatever, you're going to say, no, I'm getting this money away. I'm putting it away. I'm going to be consistent about it. I'm going to get it invested and let it start growing. You do that when you're 70 years old and you're looking at your big fund and you're like, man, good old Mr. Hurry, you know, God rest his soul, as I will be long gone at that point. You'll be thinking, man, I wish I could give that guy a hug for telling me to get it in early and early and early and early and often. And if you do that, I really do believe you guys won't even have to. I did this when I worked here. I had a massive debt that I was paying off, and this was in 1993, I was paying off $900 a month, which is a massive amount of money when your paycheck was like $1,700 after taxes. Like, I was putting away over half my paycheck to student debt to be done with it. And I got it knocked out in 3 years. It was a huge amount of student debt, which is horrible. If you can get through college without student debt, do it, guys. I mean, just, it is an awful burden to bear. Okay? But, I hope I didn't lose my train of thought. But, but I got it done. And at year 3, I got tenure. And when you get tenure here, you get this big pay jump. Back then, it was like $3,500. And I was like, you know what? I'm paying my bills fine without the $3,500. I don't need the $3,500. I'm glad to have it. I just walked down and I said, I want you to put all of it in my 403B. All of it. So literally, they took that $275, $300 a month, whatever it equated to, and they just shoved it over into my retirement fund. I never missed a beat. And when I would get raises like that, I would go, just put it in my retirement fund. And I made sure that I maximized it. And we'll talk about the benefits. And you don't want to put everything in your retirement fund, because then what happens when your air conditioner breaks and you got to buy a $10,000 air conditioner, or your roof has a bad leak and you got to replace your roof? It's 14 grand. I mean, those kind of things, you want to have that rainy day fund as well. We can talk about all that as well. But you get that money in early and often, and you're going to be in a massive, wonderful place. So one thing I want to talk to you real quickly before this bell rings is a basic interest rate formula, which you've probably seen. And we're not going to be using this a lot. But has anybody seen this thing? Yes, no? It's just it's an exponential growth curve, basically. This is the base of the exponent. And all these formulas are in your notes somewhere. But this is an interest rate formula. Now, this is a one-time investment. This is me putting the money away one time. But let me just show you, like, just over the course, if I do this, just over the course of, say, a 40-year investment, what a $6 coffee costs you. Just think about this when you go in there and you're down at the Red Cat and you're enjoying whatever down there at Railroad Park, and you're like, man, sure want. I got one the other day. It's delicious. But you go down there and you're like, $6. Just think about a one-time investment, not a monthly, not a yearly, one time. If that investment were to grow like the stock market has grown on average over any 40-year window, we'll just call it a smooth 11%. And we'll talk about compounding too. Say I compounded quarterly and I did this for 40 years. That one cup of coffee was $460. Think about that. That's a $460 cup of coffee at retirement. Every time you do that daily, say you have a coffee a day times 25, right? Now that 150. Now, guys, this is a one-time investment. Hold on. Sorry, calculator issues. Here's a monthly one-time investment, $11,000. Cut out coffees for a month. Cut it out for a year. Cut something out completely. Do it at home. I make my coffee at home. I told somebody the other day, I've probably bought less than 10 cups of coffee in my life. 10. I mean, I'm not a huge coffee drinker. I have it every morning at home. But like if I'm ever out or whatever. But again, that kind of money that you can cut out, $11,000 from a month of $6, cappuccinos. That kind of saying no to extra pair of shoes, saying no to an extra jacket, saying no to an extra hoodie. These little kinds of things that you can do in the early time and get that money in and let it grow. And once we start going to an annuity, this is not an annuity, this is a single investment. But once I start showing you formulas, and your calculator has a great program built into it for annuities, you're going to be blown away what these small sacrifices over the course of 40 or 50 years will do. It's going to just be mind-blowing. It's like you're not even going to believe it when you look at the numbers. And you're just like, that's all I have to do. Not be rich, not be a doctor, lawyer, crazy businessman, own a zillion Taco Bells. You don't have to do any of that kind of stuff. You can be a school teacher, you can be a fireman, you can be whatever it is, and you just need to be a faithful investor. Not at 42, but at 22. Right when you get out, just tell them, I want to max out my 401k or whatever your retirement thing is. I want to max it out, and then you take whatever you have left and you just figure out a way to live off that. Because I would contend this on your first job, whether somebody tells you, all right, Spencer, we're glad you're on the team. We're going to pay you 65 grand a year. Whether I pay you 65 or 70 or 60, you can find a way to spend all of it. You know what I mean? You can raise or lower your level of standard of living. Whether you're making 100 or 150, you can find a way to spend all of it. So just decide whatever they tell you, just hear it through the lens of -5 or -10 and put that money in your retirement fund and let it grow.
Big facts.
Have a good one.